We're in Sutherland, and our postcard today is from the Flows in the county of Sutherland. Well, you're wearing the famous logo of the RSPB, but why is it so important for this society to be in what looks to me just plain old wilderness?
Well, I think, Russell, when you say wilderness, that's probably one of the keys to the whole thing. This landscape probably is the closest thing that we have in Britain to wilderness, and because of that, it actually supports a huge range of wildlife that really isn't common in the rest of Britain, and in fact, which is probably you would have to go up into the north and Scandinavia to find.
So this goes on and on and on. How many miles?
Well, the flows, if you like, these wet peatlands that we're in, cover a vast area, and there are pockets of it right through to the west coast, probably 50 miles, 50, 60 miles, and it goes right over into Caithness for another 20 miles in that direction. It's probably the single largest area of blanket bog anywhere in the world.
That's incredible. In the world?
In the world, yeah.
I'm just amazed at those facts. In all these years then, the centuries, how many centuries, how long has this been like this?
Oh, it's probably ever since the Ice Age retreated from this part of Britain, these bogs started to grow. So about 8,000 years the peat. So if you go to the bottom of the peat down there's 8,000 years old.
I can now begin to see then the wildlife and the natural history and everything that this must be supporting, because there'll be stuff down there if you went on a dig that you'll be finding a lot about this planet, this country, going way back.
Yeah, colossally. I mean, there's an amazing record stored up in the peat bogs here. They haven't found a lot of bog bodies here. I'm still looking for one from my visitor centre, but we have, you can tell from the pollen even stored in the bogs what grew here 8,000 years ago, and there are simply millions of pollen grains in every sort of cubic centimetre of peat in here, so there's a vast amount of knowledge stored in there.
But surely it's never supported much human life?
No, it's a very harsh habitat, if you like, for anything to live in. Very nutrient poor, things grow very slowly, etc. So the wildlife on it, for example, is highly adapted insect-eating plants. There are 5 different species of insect-eating plant here. The deer are probably slightly smaller than your average even Scottish deer, and people have generally made use of it by grazing it with their animals, which is a fairly natural process. They've cut it, burned it on their fires for centuries, but made very little else use of it because it simply is a very harsh wilderness.
Do you get many people here, enthusiasts, members of the public, who just come and see what is happening here?
We do. I think partly because we're RSPB and we have a membership of over 1 million people in Britain now, and also because it's such a wild area, which a lot of people now are obviously seeking. They want to seek out the sort of wilder areas of Britain and Europe. We get about 6,000 people through the visitor centre here, which, considering how remote we are, is quite remarkable, and quite a lot of them come on the train, because one of the nice things about Sutherland is that we do have a railway station, and in fact our visitor centre's in the railway station, so a number of people come that way.
Tell us about the birds that you can get here that perhaps you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, the bogs really come into life in the spring and early summer, and those are really the best months to be here. Midges aren't out on the wing either, but certainly bird-wise, what's special about these birds, which would normally breed in the north of Europe, things like greenshank, wading birds, which you'd normally see at the seaside, but this is where they come to breed, and something like 3/4 of Britain's greenshank breed up here. Spectacular water birds like black-throated divers and red-throated divers, which we have three pairs of each on Sutherland, and so various lochs in the north of Scotland you can see them quite easily. But just fantastic looking birds with polka dots and checks and stripes and black and white. Just look like test cards, sort of black and white test cards.
Tartans is there in Scotland?
Aye, yes, yeah. But yeah, and the other things I suppose that are very obvious, especially in the later part of the summer, are birds of prey. Just behind us last year we had merlin breeding.
In these trees?
Yeah, well, no, on the hillside, in
On the
fact.
hillside.
They nest on the ground in the heather.
Behind us, there's a lot of watery tracks. Are these very much a part of this landscape, or are they man-made?
No, these are completely natural, these features. They're bog pools, dewlochans as they're called in Gaelic, which means black lochan, because they're formed in peat. So basically they're depressions in the peat, and this is quite a small area of dewlochans, but elsewhere in the peatlands they go on for miles. So the guided walks which we run in the summer go up to one of the pool systems right out on the bogs here, and there's basically about a mile and a half with thousands of these pools. Just bizarre things to walk through, because they are, as well as frustrating, because you're trying to work out where you're going in them is very difficult. They've developed these quite strange shapes. And a lot of the birds that we're talking about, are associated with these pool systems. They tend to breed around them, feed around them.
Now, you talked about dewlochan. You've got a little walk there. It's like a pavement through the bogs. And you call it the flow country?
If you want to annoy local people, you call it the flow country.
Oh, really? We don't want to annoy them.
Yeah, well, we tend to refer to it as the flows. People are happy with the flows, which is it's a Norse derivation word, which basically means very wet, which is a good description of the ground.
Wherever we are, there is a pavement that I saw back down there.
Yep.
And it looks as though you've got a walk. Where would that walk take me to?
Well, that's our dewlochan trail, which is there to really get people out onto the bogs, because I think you've actually got to be out on them to really get a feel for them and to see some of these plants, which are generally small, so you need to be able to get down there and have a good look at them. And that takes us just about a quarter of a mile off the public road up into one of these sets of dewlochans. We can walk through them, look at some of the plants. There's a leaflet that describes what people are seeing as they go, and really I think is one of the most important things we have at the visitor centre here.
The final thing, any other big plans for the future here, for the preservation of this obviously unique area?
Luckily, because it is as near natural as it is, we shouldn't have to do too much work to keep it there. We will block up some hill drains and things that have been put in over the years, but generally, hopefully, it should be quite an easy reserve to manage once we've sorted those problems out.
Well, we look forward to a lot of Britons coming to discover another part of Britain. Well, we've heard about all these marvellous things here in the flows, but the proof of the pudding is in the eating, especially those insect-eating plants. It's no yellow brick road, this, but it is the dewlochan Trail, which means the Black Lakes. So if you're ready, we'll have a little stroll around this great wilderness.